you the low sand press release?
Yeah, for the FRA. For the FRA. For the that's it for right now.
Okay. And then we just need to.
Good morning, sir. Can you hear me? Tony, no. Tony said he was zooming.
Tony's doing it here.
I was shocked. Email said Sharon and Jack are talking upstairs right now. They're both here.
Buenos dias, ¿cómo está?
Good morning, sir.
How are things? Are we, how many people we got? Just me?
Just you right now, sir, but I believe Ms. Jenkins and Mr. Feller upstairs making their way down.
Okay, very good.
We thought you were going to be here, Tony, so I bought a bunch of steaks and
What'd you bring for me?
food, and now you're not here. Now you're barking at me. So I don't want to talk to you.
I got a real job, remember that?
Yeah.
She's supposed to be calling me. So.
Have you been sleeping, Sharon?
Yeah, too much.
Good morning, Miss Edson. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, Chair Krantz, everyone is here.
Very good. I would like to call to order the NCT Executive Committee for November 5th, 2020. Anthony, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Tony Krantz.
Here.
Jack Feller. Sharon Jenkins. Jewel Edson.
Here.
Very good. Anthony will now provide a safety briefing and review evacuation procedures.
Yes, sir. In the event of an emergency, I'll dial 911. In the event of an evacuation, please evacuate using the stairs. Do not use the elevator. Once cleared of the building, do not re-enter unless told to do so by emergency personnel. We have fire extinguishers and fire alarms on each floor of this building. We also have a portable defibrillator located on the first floor and staff on hand trained on CPR procedures. That concludes my safety brief, sir.
Thank you. And Anthony, do we have any public comments today?
No, sir.
All right, there was one item on the regular agenda, and Karen Tukolsky, the Chief Administrative Officer, will review that item. The intent of this review is to allow public input, to allow input from the Executive Committee in developing a final agenda for these 2 months.
All right, good morning, everyone. Is this working all right, Anthony, for your recording? Okay, super. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to go through this item with us. So before we start, just a brief reminder to all of us that we're going through the setting of the items in the agenda. We don't want to get too far into the actual agenda items themselves because we haven't agendized the items on the agenda. We're just agendizing the agenda. So Lori's happy. She's smiling under her mask that I said that. Life is good. So want to start off by just taking a quick look first here at November. So all of these items kind of have a chain link type of connection to them. So we're going to go through them, talk about what the purpose of each of them is, and then hopefully, assuming I've done my job properly, you will see what the linkage and the ordering is that that we're seeking to achieve here in order to provide meaningful public process for these various items.
So what Karen is reviewing is the draft board agenda for the month of November. And the month of November includes both a workshop and a regular board meeting. So what's there is the workshop that is currently scheduled for 1 o'clock for November. I can't remember the date.
I know.
Everybody got it?
Can I just ask?
Mhm.
Sure you are.
Why are we doing this? We haven't done this in.
Yeah, so one of the reasons I wanted to do this was, and you'll see, because between straddling the issues with management of the STB petition and the fencing project, I felt like it was a good idea for the executive committee to have a discussion with staff to talk about how we bring things, when we bring things, and to provide that input rather than you just seeing the agenda item show up. There were also a number of items that were requested from board members to be calendared. Some of them can't be necessarily accommodated within the next couple of months. Some of them need to be out in the next few months. So it was really just to make sure we're on the right track as we deal with the last couple of months of the year.
And in looking at this, I wonder, do you really think that this can be handled in an hour, or will the start time for the regular meeting just be pushed if we're not complete with these workshop items?
Oh, so from the presentations that have been developed, they're developed and assume enough time of reasonable questions to be done within an hour. So it's 2 presentations, but depending on the discussion within the board, it could potentially exceed that.
Yeah, and so and I would expect that relative to item 2, that there might be a lot of public comment. Are we taking public comment via Zoom, or what is the intention of how this workshop public participation will be?
We are continuing. Sorry, sir, this is Anthony. we're continuing to receive public comment via email, and we'll also track those. The number of comments we get, I'll report out to the board, like we did at previous meetings. I'll also play any of the voicemails that come in. Should they be a reasonable number? If we get so many, we may just summarize, and I will work with General Counsel's office before we do that. But right now, we're just tracking them through our public comments email. I'm saving them all, and then I will provide those to the board as we state in our agenda as well. That will make it available to the board and to the public.
Okay, Board Member Edson has her hand up.
Thank you. So with this as the workshop, does that mean on the agenda following that we're going to vote regarding the fencing on the bluffs?
So no, why don't we take a quick look at what we're proposing here and see if the committee feels that we have things spaced out properly and that, we're doing things with time for consideration and not just, jumping into things.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to get ahead
No,
without knowing the next step. That was the question.
Yeah, I was under the impression that this was it. Is there a presentation that we're going to get next?
No, you're not getting a presentation. I just want to talk through what the items are that we're proposing on this effort over these next couple agendas. And then you guys can give some feedback, as Matt said, on whether you think we have things timed out properly and have the right flow and information being presented to the board and to the public.
And just to kind of set the table so everybody can take a deep breath, we don't have any scheduled action related to the fencing or STB for the month of November board meeting. There's no scheduled action item. For the month of December, again, Karen's going to get you there. We currently have planned on the consent agenda to approve fencing within the city of Oceanside, because we have communicated with the city of Oceanside. There's no issue with us advancing that project. And then then we have an update scheduled in the month of December on plans for fencing in the city of Del Mar and in the city of Encinitas. So it's not scheduled for approval for the month of December. It's scheduled for discussion because that allows the bridge in between the time that we've communicated in writing to the city of Del Mar that they have until November 30th to let us know their intent of whether or not they would want alternative fencing or whether or not they want to utilize parts of NCTD's right of way where feasible for NCTD to create a potential trail. So in terms of just setting that stage for you guys, there's no intended action on Del Mar and Encinitas within this calendar year.
May I ask another question?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, Del Mar's got, if the, when the votes are all tabulated and whatnot, but it looks like it's going to carry the way that it's looking today, quite a change in their council. So asking for this by the end of November, I realize that we're on a timeline with regard to insurance and with regard to the funding that we have, but Del Mar might need another month for new people to be in there to make that decision.
That may be the case, but that's not really what's up for discussion. And I will say, Joel, it's been, they've known this for more than 60 to 90 days.
Right.
So
you have an outgoing council of two members and two incoming council members that might be a little more friendly and willing to work with NCTD.
So why don't we just, and I don't want to get too much into these items as Mr. Tucker noted, we're not into the depth of the process on exactly how we're getting all these things done. We're just taking a look at what we need for the agenda. So if Del Mar does feel that they need more time, they certainly can reach out to NCTD independently and discuss that with us. But this shouldn't be something that the board really should be getting into in deciding that level of detail at this setting here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no problem. Thank you, Joel. Appreciate it. So as you can see, we do have a workshop scheduled for November, and we have two items that we're going to cover off. One is the review of the market conditions within the insurance industry. There's been a lot of changes in the insurance industry over this past year. And as we all know, NCTD does carry the railroad liability insurance, which is a significant cost and of course, important, item that we have. We need to have that coverage. So everything that we do here relates to risk, and insurance is all about mitigating and protecting us from risk. So we do want to take time to have the board hear about what these current market conditions are that we are currently working in, as we do expect that it's not just a one-off. These are things we need to start looking at over the long term as well. So we would have Mr. Jacob Gould be giving that presentation and information to the board at the workshop. The other item that we want on the workshop for November is the update on the study that NCTD had a consultant conduct regarding railroad trespassing mitigation efforts. That effort was led by Sean Lufborough, close support with our Chief Development Officer, Tracy Foster, who of course manages all of our real estate. And there's a lot of information in there. As we know, trespassing is a significant issue. And we do want to take the opportunity to have the board hear in-depth information about what the consultants observed and what they have recommended to us. So both of those are important items that of course tie together, and they are seminal points in looking at how we move ahead in terms of some of the issues regarding fencing. So we put that on as a workshop item for educational purposes. These are not action items, strictly background education and information for the board members and of course for the public.
So I think probably one of the inflection points from the committee to staff is, do you believe we need to make arrangements for the potential that the workshop exceeded an hour, or should we keep the workshop to 1 hour?
Well, it seems to me that is, to be driven by the manner in which we receive public comment on these items. And, if it's going to be written, if it's going to be telephonic, that is probably going to limit it. If it's going to be live, that's a different story. But it seems to me that that's the key to it. I don't know, Jack or Sharon, do you have any comments? I haven't seen any hands up. There's Jack. Vice Chair Feller.
I would say an hour is more than enough time for this.
Okay.
My only concern would be echo what you had said, Tony, is I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to say what they want to say to us. I don't want anybody to feel like we cut them off, and so I just don't know if an hour will be enough.
So, and just to rewind this in terms of what Anthony said, given kind of where we are in terms of COVID-19, we've been taking the feedback in through emails, right? And so so the intent is to continue to take the public comment in through the emails that we then provide to the board. We have also had a number of telephonic messages that have left. I think we've played a couple of those messages within the 15 minutes that was allocated for a regular board meeting. So given that, and not very much doubt between now and now and the next board meeting that COVID-19 and restrictions are going to be removed, you're going to still be receiving all of that feedback largely through email communications to the board that we don't typically read into the record. We provide it and include it in the record instead.
Well, so the other question that I would have, and it seems logical that a workshop would have a fairly limited staff report, or how do you see the details of this update to be disseminated? And so that's the other part of this, is that we're getting an update. It's not an action item. And so the update is helpful, I think, for the public especially, and also board members who have had some opportunity, I guess, to discuss this somewhat as part of the STB filing. But in the meantime, I guess that's what I'm wondering is how do you see this being put out with this particular agenda in terms of staff reports and other things?
So it's Tony, it's as it sits today, it is a very detailed presentation that staff has developed and close to finalization. So it's as it sits today, I believe it's like a 20 to 22 slide deck, PowerPoint presentation. It's walking through all of the facets related to trespass mitigation, past efforts and steps that we've taken, including information relative to the actual analysis that was completed. And I do think you are right in the sense that for a lot of people, maybe they have or have not dug into the details of it, and we'll be seeing a lot of the details. But I think a lot of the information over time you've already seen in terms of trespasser events, but we're tying it all together in a cohesive document, in a cohesive presentation. So theoretically, Tony, if there's robust board discussion between the two items, you could easily go past the 1 hour time limit. I think reasonably, I would suspect that after an hour and a half combined for both items, I couldn't see that there would be a significant discussion potentially beyond an additional 30-minute window.
Okay, and are a lot of the, will this update involve much of the information that has been posted to our website on the new web pages, which I haven't clicked through every link, but the ones that I have, it seems like we've got quite a bit of detail on that site.
Yes, sir. And it will be summarizing it. So, so we're going to go into specific details like explaining you what is our fencing standard, what's the proposed fencing that's specific in Delmar. We're going to provide some information relative to our past efforts in terms of the 3 E's, education, enforcement, and engineering relative to the city of Delmar. We're going to show hot spots. We're going to provide some of the literature from Federal Railroad Administration that sort of supports the challenge of us needing to stem the tide. So we're pulling all of that together, Tony, trying to pull the most salient and prescient information for the board together in a PowerPoint presentation.
Got it.
So what about, just to be safe, I'm not saying we need a 2-hour meeting by any means, but what about just to be safe, we make it an hour and a half, just so there's enough time. If it gets done in an hour, then great, but at least people might not feel rushed to.
I think we're comfortable with it. And I think we can work the agenda so that we can keep the start time at 1 o'clock and be able to adjust back the start time of our regular meeting to 2:30 rather than having people come in. I would prefer not to disrupt people's schedule to say come in at 12:30.
Okay.
Jewel, is your hand back up again? I don't control lowering the hand. So
it is. I raise it, I lower it because sometimes what I want to say is already said, but I did raise it again. I'll just mirror what Sharon said. And I like the idea of starting on time and just delaying the start of the regular meeting as the way to handle it. So I think that's a good suggestion. And I really like the idea of the workshop because I think for the public to understand what we understand is really important. And will the video that we've seen be included within that trespassing review and update?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, this time we're going to actually play both of those videos with sound because we do think it's important for people to actually, while some of the background chatter from the media doesn't necessarily support what we're saying, we think it's important for people to hear from some of the people who are trespassing exactly what their thoughts are and what they're doing. So we intend to actually play the video, both videos as part of this PowerPoint, just to illustrate the risks that are out there.
I think that that's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we will make note that we will keep these two items on the workshop as is. We will start it at 1 o'clock, and if necessary, we will work to start the regular meeting later if the 1 o'clock workshop does go over past 2 o'clock. So, Anthony, you're scrolling. All right, so the November agenda, by and large, has the regular board meeting, has our typical items on it in terms of our regular monthly and quarterly reporting and our regular various and sundry contract action items. So I don't think there's necessarily need to get into all of those in detail. But what I do want to call out, if you keep scrolling, Anthony, thank you, kind sir, down to other business, is that we do have an item potentially on here for paying the district insurance premiums. Remember when I started, I said everything has a linkage. So Jacob is going to tell us all the great news that's going on in the insurance industry during the workshop. And we are currently in the process of getting our renewal information for the upcoming annual premium. We do a lot for a certain amount of expense for their premium in the budget, but based on where things are at in the insurance industry, there is potential for it to exceed that, which would necessitate this then having to come to the board for formal action because it's beyond what we anticipated. So we are in the process of working on that right now. And I just want to make sure everyone understands that that is why that may be on there. Because Jacob is going to do his best to keep our costs down, but he can only do so much. So, yes.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes.
So would we normally put the paying of the district insurance under consent?
It normally,
But we're only doing it because of this.
well, if it's
possible-
outside of the budget, it's approved within the normal operating budget process. We
Then-
started that, and so it wouldn't go
Okay,
on
so it's-
consent even, but because it's outside, potentially would be outside of what the board approved with the
That's
operating
why.
budget, then it would require independent action, correct?
Okay.
And we wouldn't
I
want
wanted
to
to
just throw it on
clarify.
consent. We'd want to explain what that is and have the opportunity for discussion.
Okay.
So if it comes in within the budget, it will not be on the agenda.
Right. Okay.
Pressure, Jacob. All right, so then the next item, just under the informational section, we just would have added a verbal report from the nominating committee chairperson in regard to where they're at with their process for the calendar year 2021 nominations for board chair and vice chair. So we would ask Ms. Bhat Patel to be doing that. And again, no formal presentation. This would just be a verbal report out from the committee.
And did we do that previously this way?
We have not done it previously in recent years. The years kind of vary based on where things are at in terms of board membership and changes for potential turnover. So this is one of the years where we do have a lot more moving parts going on out there
Okay.
in the political arena. So we just want to give a chance for the board and for the public to hear from the nominating committee on where they're at and making sure that everyone feels comfortable that they're on track to meet the deadlines to get the elections for our board chair and vice chair through timely for calendar 2021.
Which should come in December.
Correct.
Got it.
Yes. So those are the big highlights for November.
Well, and in fact, I should have highlighted this one. So item 21, item 21, if you recall, was from our discussions last month. And so this is, we're going to provide a comprehensive update on our signal optimization and modernization project. That is also the project where we just received the 9.8 or $9.9 million from the Federal Railroad Administration. So this presentation is going to be a detailed presentation. It's going to be actually provided by Zach Taylor, who is our manager of signals. And we're going to walk through the entire overall program. So the entire overall program, if you add that plus what we have with the Federal Railroad Administration, is about a $37 million program. He's going to walk you all through kind of the highlights of the overall program, but then dig deep into signal modernization to talk about the different types of technologies that are available and how we're and our proposed way forward in terms of the upgrades that we're planning to do on our system. So I think that's responsive to some of the discussion that we had. And so that will be a very detailed presentation.
Looks good to me.
Great. All right. All right, Anthony, you want to take a look at December, move us into the final month of the calendar year? All right, so thank you. So moving on to December, not highlighted, but I do just want to call out that we will again be doing our annual employee service recognition in December, where we do have the opportunity to recognize those direct and contract employees who have been in service to the district and our public for many years. We'll be recognizing individuals with 35 years or more of service. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we won't be able to have them come in for presentations, but we are doing very nice detailed videos, and we will make sure that they get the respect and thank you and recognition that they deserve for all their efforts. So just want to call that out as a continued good news highlight for the district, for our board and the public. All right, scrolling. So again, we have our typical regular items that we'll have on for regular monthly reporting, quarterly reporting. As noted on item number 5, we are going to receive nominations for board chair and vice chair. That'll be following through on the report out that we have in November. And then, of course, we'll be adopting our calendar year meeting schedule for 2021 as well. And then currently, you want to keep scrolling, we do have few more contractual items. I'm sure between now and December, that list of contractual items for approval will expand, but this is where we're at right now. As Mr. Tucker had noted, we have put the item for the award of fencing installation in the city of Oceanside on the consent agenda for December. This is on the consent agenda. We have had discussions with the city of Oceanside, and we're all on the same page. So we did not feel the need to put it on an other business item since basically all the key parties on both sides are in agreement on the path forward. So that's where we would propose putting this item and moving that forward, which, as Jewel noted earlier, also helps us keep on track for our grant funding that we have received for this project on this part.
So I have a question. I'm sorry, can you scroll up just a little bit? Anything? Are you saying is number 9? Oh, that's all part of consent?
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
So, so is there a benefit? Let's think about this for a minute. Is there a benefit to not having this on the consent and putting it as an action item to show the relationship of working together to get to this point? Or is there not an advantage to that?
As far as Oceanside's concerned, there is no concern.
Okay.
We're ready for the
Okay.
It's because we talked about that internally. You know, in most in 99% of discussions around something like this, it's a perfunctory type of activity
Okay.
that we're doing. I would tell you, you know, for like Oceanside, and all of the projects we've been working through and having these communications with people. So to me, this seems like just something that we should be doing. That's kind of an easy item to get done.
Okay.
I don't think it hurts or helps one way or the other way.
Okay.
Okay. So that would then take us on to the informational items. Do Do want to note that we will be having a quarterly financial report for the fourth quarter of FY 2020, as well as the first quarter of FY 2021 by our Chief Financial Officer. So given finances always being important to transit, they're even more important at this time. So this will be very good information for everybody to have, just keeping us up to date on where we kind of ended up in fiscal year 2020 with the start of the pandemic, and how that has impacted us in terms of fiscal 2021 year to date. So there'll be good information in that presentation. Then the other item that we are proposing to put on under information is to receive an update on the plan to establish fencing within the boundary limits for the cities of Delmar and Encinitas. And as Mr. Tucker had noted again earlier, this is not an action item. This is just an informational item where staff will be able to provide the board members and the public with an update on where our plan is at. We mentioned the letter that has gone out to the city of Delmar and the response that is forthcoming from them. Notwithstanding that the city may ask for more time, and if that happens and it's granted, that's a separate issue, and that may affect this item. But just where we're at right now, we do believe that this is a good way to move this forward in terms of continuing that discussion and education on where we are at in our process with both of those cities. Staff will have had the opportunity to put together some good information about what the plans would look like for where the fencing would go, and the type of fencing that would be proposed, the timeline for initiation and completion, and what that process would look like. So this is, again, not an action item, but again, an informational item, which does give the chance for the board and the members of the public to give that feedback and make sure that we do have a opportunity for a robust discussion on this item. So that's what the big items are that we have proposed for December.
And I think just keep in mind, this is going to be a good opportunity because Delmar will be able to participate in this discussion. A lot of the things that you guys were, talking about here, should we do this versus that? That's the appropriate forum to have that discussion as part of that presentation, because that will be the time for the board to start coming together on a general feedback about where, about the next steps with this. And I think at that meeting, I would assume Delmar would be prepared to be able to inform the board one way or the other way, their willingness to move forward, because I think it's a hard discussion to have and not express exactly where the city's position is. So that discussion will likely all be there at that meeting.
And then also at that meeting, you would be or somebody will be giving an update, and you'll be able to give some, this might be in the weeds a little bit. You'll be able to give some historical perspective and update as to what has transpired and however far back the efforts North County Transit has made.
Yes, ma'am. And in fact, some of that information is now on the website. Some of that information is going to be in Sean's presentation.
Okay.
So we're going to walk through in Sean's presentation in November. I have to refer it by name because I can't even remember what month we're doing stuff. But he's going to do a walkthrough with that. And what we will be doing here is kind of going through a little bit of historical discussion again, in terms of the communications that we've had most recently with the city of Delmar and the city of Encinitas as well, in terms of advancing these projects.
Okay.
And is with it posted as an informational item, is this will there be an opportunity for staff direction at all from the board if something comes up as part of this conversation, or are we on the receiving end of this information, and how does that work in terms of how things are agendized? I guess this is more a question for Lori.
It's funny that you bring that up, because we had a little bit of that discussion, so I'm going to turn it over to Lori.
Yes, we have had that discussion internally, and there were some reasons why we felt that just an update to the board would be necessary at this time. I think when we have more detail in terms of the project plan itself, that might be more appropriate for bringing this to the board for specific board action. I don't want to disclose too much because we're, about to go into closed session on this item. But we internally believe that just an update to the board was most appropriate, considering that there will be a lot of open issues still at that time. I think we could consider, and this is something that I would need to discuss with Matt, whether or not we put this on an other business item where there could be potential action by the board in terms of direction. And I think that's something that's certainly feasible, but I will discuss that with Matt.
But Tony, I think I am comfortable with, I think what you're suggesting, that if we move this one to an other business, and so that if we have the discussion, and I think we just need to narrow that what the board really would be doing is giving a little bit of policy direction to staff as a possible action, but not a requirement. So I think if that's the sentiment that you're asking us to move towards, is that correct, Chair?
Yeah, I was actually thinking of telling you how much concrete to put in the post holes.
Well, you were engineering signals last month, so.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, is that, I just think it's, better for the public and that we approach this thing as if we're, this is a longstanding policy that the board has had, and if there are any interests in changing it, then that is not foreclosed by the way we agendize it. That's the most important thing. It's not that I expect any changes, but I think that it's an important indicator of the board is interested in public input, and we're not closed-minded, and so that's why I think that how we post this on the agenda is important.
Okay. We will make that adjustment.
Okay.
Just so I understand what just transpired, you're suggesting move this from information to a possible other action in case direction is given or a vote is taken, I guess.
Yeah, well, so for
do something.
Yeah, so
or not do something.
Right. So the board could have, I think what Tony's allowing the possibility for the board to specifically want to direct staff on next steps from a policy point of view, maybe change policy, maybe provide clarity of direction in terms of Del Mar, in terms of how that's going to proceed. It opens up for the possibility for the board to be able to take that action, or to be swayed to say, hey, we want to revisit our board policy. All of those possibilities.
Correct. Jewel.
Thank you. So moving it to the actionable area, is there a possibility that the fencing might be approved in December, or is this just strictly policy discussion and change in policy?
Strictly policy discussion from my point of view. So I'm speaking as the executive director because I don't have a contract that I'm bringing to you in December for you to authorize award.
Okay. I just don't want to frighten people and get them riled up thinking that we're moving faster. We're trying to really make this very transparent and clear and inclusive. We don't want to push it into a space that makes people think we're rushing it again. It's my only caution.
Well, and I think that it should be agendized in a very similar way in terms of the language that's in it. We're receiving an update on a plan, and we just have it in an area that indicates that it gives us the authority to give staff direction, make requests that are specific to this particular policy, et cetera, et cetera. So it's still just update, and I think, as Matt expressed, there is still quite a bit of work to be done in order to come up with the contracting and engineering and design that's necessary. And frankly, that's one of the things that we're waiting, that this engagement with Del Mar is about, are they interested in exploring the possibility of accepting, signing an MOU where they accept some risk with regard to their residents and visitors using NCTD right away to traverse this trail. So, these are all things that I think would give us some flexibility to have a robust conversation about these items, including the city of Del Mar in the conversation, and have it publicly and I think openly is the right way to do this.
I agree with that, for that clarification. And again, I think the more that we reiterate the history and whatnot, the better. Tell the public once in November, tell the public again in December.
Jack has his hands up, Tony.
Oh, Jack.
I would, I probably won't be here when you're discussing this, but I wouldn't say some risk, all risk for Del Mar.
Yes. That's an important clarification.
And then I have a question. So if this is moved from an info item to an actionable item, can Del Mar participate in the discussion?
Yes, they can participate in that discussion.
Okay.
So that was all I had for the proposed November and December agendas. Staff has made notes on the direction the committee has given us. So that's it from me, unless there's other questions or information that I can provide on this item.
Well, there's a couple of additional things that I'll just make note of. I know Board Member Desmond had a couple of requests at the end of the meeting. One was an update on fare box recovery. So we're going to do a detailed update on the fiscal year 20 ending and the first quarter of fiscal year 21 to include all performance factors plus the fare box recovery. He also made a request relative to administrative costs associated with SANDAG advancing capital projects. That's a little bit more complex. So we're looking at having that as a discussion item in the month of February, March, because of the amount of work that we're going to have to do to complete that analysis. So I wanted to make sure everyone knows, based upon us having this meeting, this will allow us to communicate back out to the board with clarity amongst all of the items, all of the feedback that we received last month about this is the way forward in terms of how we're going to be responding to the board requests that we've received.
I'm also interested in notifying the public and board about the strategy, the plan for implementing the new locomotives in the operations and what we see as, and it's related to the pandemic, the COVID situation. Is our schedule is the coaster schedule going to remain the same for an indefinite time, or do we have any kind of plan for when we might add weekend service, et cetera, those sort of things?
Okay, so and so Tony, are you comfortable with us agendizing that for January?
Yeah, sure. I think you said that you intended to have the locomotives in revenue service in January. So
yes,
that would suggest that that update would come after we're actually rolling these things, and that's not the end of the world. But
we can do it. We can do it in December. That's not a big lift. We have all of the information that we need. So I will add that to the information items for the month of December. And then in terms of the placement of discussion items, I would propose that we have the information items in front of the other business item, which is currently item 11. So that would be the last item that the board would be discussing.
That'd be great. And I happen to be on the LOSAN board when LOSAN, when the Pacific Surfliner locomotives, Charger locomotives were put into revenue service, and there was a a ribbon cutting ceremony at Union Station. Are we going to do anything similar? I've been asked about the public having an opportunity to learn more about the locomotives by maybe walking through it, similar to what they did at Union Station.
We won't support walking through it, but we are planning an event for it, more of a virtual event that's kind of fits the time that we are in right now. But I will have Kimmy spin you up, Tony, a little bit online. I think our original discussions internally was to have an event at Oceanside Transit Center, and that we would have some people actually present, but limited based upon COVID-19 restrictions, and then make that kind of a virtual event for people to be able to attend. So yes, we are planning for that. So I think it's actually, I'm glad you brought it up. So we should probably have that item on the agenda for December so that we can kind of connect that to the actual event.
Okay, very good. Thank you. With that, I guess we're done with item number 1. Then we move into the closed session of this meeting. And there's one item. And as a reminder to those participating remotely, you will have to connect to the second Zoom invite to participate on the closed session. At the end of the closed session, you need to reconnect to the committee meeting. And with that, Lori Winfrey, General Counsel, will now take us into closed session.
Thank you, Chair Krantz. So today, as our chairperson stated, we have one closed session item pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, Public Employee Performance Evaluation for our Executive Director.
Hey, Anthony, I don't know that I have a second meeting Zoom. Can you resend that to me?
Yes, sir. It should be a second link on the calendar invite as well, but I will try to
No,
reach
that's all I need. I'll look for that there.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So we gotta close out this meeting? Because Tony can't get back on.
No, he had to go to some, I don't know, he's working for a living or something.
Hello, Anthony.
Ma'am?
I'm here.
Okay, so the executive committee is returning from closed session where they discussed the executive director's performance, and they have referred this matter to a closed session of the full board at its regular meeting on November 19th. This concludes my report.
And I'm going to close this meeting out and see you in an hour.